Welcome to the Lazy Money Machine, where we show you the easy, no-nonsense way to financial and time freedom. Here are your hosts, Graham Brown and Eric Tenhaver.
We're live on the Facebook Live group with Jasper Ribbers. Hello, Jasper.
Hey, Eric. How are you doing?
Very well. Nice to see you. And welcome as one of the latest members of our Lazy Money Machine movement and tribe.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, very cool. For people that don't know who Jasper is, I've interviewed Jasper before, and he has a very interesting way of living and of sustaining himself. And I'll let Jasper explain in a minute. But in short, Jasper is an Airbnb host, and he is also teaching a lot of other people on how to invest in Airbnb. He has a book out that's called How to Get Paid for Your Pet, and a website with the same name, and a podcast with hundreds of episodes weekly, I think, where you talk with other people, and also you do your updates on what's happening in the Airbnb market. So our Airbnb expert has joined the Lazy Money Machine. I'm very happy with that. We're just starting. You're already hundreds of episodes down the line. But we're very happy to have you on board. So maybe you can maybe give a quick introduction of who you are and what makes you so different from a lot of other people.
Yeah, sure. Well, I am just like yourself. I'm based in the Netherlands. After I went to university, I took a trading job in Amsterdam and later in Chicago, which went pretty well. When I was young, I always felt like I wanted to do something different than the standard sort of path. But I really didn't know how to do that and what I should be doing. So I just kind of went along with the standard path of going to university, getting a degree, getting a job, etc. But at some point in my life, I realized that, I really wanted something different. And at the time I was 32. I was living in Chicago. I'd been trading for 6 years. I was getting a little bit bored with the trading. And I thought, okay, well, if I want to change my life, if I want to do something different, I have to do it now because, you can't postpone it forever. And, the last thing I wanted was to sort of, grow old with regrets of never having tried to really, do the thing that I really wanted for my life. And so, in 2010, I made the decision to quit my job and to, kind of take a leap of faith, without any plans. I just took off to Brazil. Mm-hmm. And then I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Basically, that's how everything got started.
So what was the turning point for you to decide? Well, this working lifestyle in the finance business is no longer for me, and I want freedom, and I'll figure out a way to achieve that.
Well, I had a couple of realizations. The first realization I had was that adding more money to my bank account didn't really affect my happiness or sense of fulfillment. Yeah. So, just sitting in the office all day just to, change that number on my bank account, it didn't feel like that I was going to get anything from that. And secondly, it was just the lack of freedom that I had. I wasn't happy with it, I got bored with the life. I felt like I was wasting my time in the office. I felt like I was just a monkey doing a little trick mm-hmm. that I learned. And, I guess it was a profitable trick because, I did well financially, but at the same time I was just sitting in an office all day and I didn't feel motivated. I wasn't excited about it. So I really felt like I'm wasting my time, and the only benefit that I get is that my bank account goes up a little bit every year. Yeah. But is that really what I want from life, or do I want something else? Mm-hmm. So those two things really, drove me to the conclusion. Okay, I want to at least try. I want to at least try to do something different. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if I'm going to be successful. I don't know if I'm maybe I have to go back to a trading job in a couple of years when I run out of money. I had no idea, but at least I wanted to try. I wanted to give it a shot because I really didn't want to have regrets looking back later and saying, okay, I was too scared to do it, but I really wanted to do it, but I just didn't have the ball.
This brave decision you've taken to leave your corporate job and try to explore a new lifestyle. Many people struggle with that decision, and the longer you're in a working situation, usually the more difficult it becomes, right? So people that are thinking about doing something like you did, what would you tell them? How would you advise them to look at whether or not they could do the same?
Well, I mean, first of all, I really realized that it is a difficult decision. And in the last 8 years, I've actually encouraged a lot of people who really wanted to do something similar. I've really encouraged and supported them in their decision. And a lot of my friends have actually made similar moves. But I know from talking to them, I know how it's very stressful, right? Because you don't know what you're getting into. You're giving up your security. And, it's scary. And, I was in a fairly comfortable situation because I did have my apartment in Amsterdam that I bought, and I paid off the mortgage with the money that I made trading. And so I had some sort of a backup, right? I knew I could rent out my apartment. And, if worst comes to the worst, I can live in a very cheap country and, I wouldn't end up in the gutter.
Yep.
But some of the people that I sort of, supported in their decision to quit their jobs, not a lot of them didn't have that much savings. And maybe they had enough savings for 6 months or for 1 year. And so, but they've all made it work. And what that really taught me is that, if you have less savings, then you're much more motivated to really work your ass off. Like I've seen some of my friends just do incredible things, that I really respected, because to be honest with you, I was a little bit lazy myself because I had more of a runway to go. So, I kind of gave myself some time to just enjoy myself and travel the world and, and do some cool things. But I think the biggest realization that people should have is that, what's the worst case scenario? I think people usually, they take a worst case scenario that's way worse than it really is, right? Because, if you have, some type of job, you have knowledge, you have a lot of value already, right? Just because you quit your job doesn't mean that's all gone. Yeah. Right? You probably will be able to find another job if you really have to. Right? And so that's the first thing that I would say. Like, worst case scenario is not that you're going to end up in the gutter, right? Worst case scenario is that you're just going to find a new job and it will be a similar situation that you left off. But, so I think that's the first realization. And then the second realization is also that, if you really want to change things, if you really want to go for it, there's ways to work on things, without spending a lot of money. Like, I know people who've moved back in with their parents and just worked for 6 months building up their business, until they were generating enough money to live by themselves. I know people who started building their business in the evening hours or in the weekends while they were at their job, right? And so, there's ways to go about it. You can live, for example, I lived in Vietnam for a while, and, I was counting every single dollar that I was spending because I was just curious, like, how much money do you really need to live a comfortable life in Vietnam? And I ended up spending less than $1,000 a month.
Amazing, yeah.
Eating out two or three times a day. Yeah. Living in a pretty nice, I wasn't big, but I had my own room, my own bathroom. And so, it was quite comfortable, but still I was spending less than $1,000. So, if you have, let's say you have like $25,000 of savings, if you live in a country like Vietnam, that's 2 years, right? That's a lot of time. Yeah. That's a lot of time to build something. Yeah. And so those, I guess those are the main things that I would that I always tell people, like, hey, you're not going to end up in the gutter, and there are ways to live very cheaply while you're building your business. And if you still feel uncomfortable with that, well, how about just stay at your job for another 6 months or another year and just try to save up as much money as you can and use the time that you have in the evenings and the weekends to already start building your business, so that when you quit, you already have something going.
Yeah.
And one more thing that I want to throw in here, actually. One of my friends, she was working for GM. She had a pretty high position at GM.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good job. And she really wanted to quit her job, and she was really scared about it. And so I encouraged her. And what actually happened was quite fascinating, because she told her boss that she wanted to quit, and her boss didn't want to let her go because her boss was like, okay, now I have to find a new person.
Yeah.
And so he was trying to convince her to stay. But then eventually he asked her, like, well, why do you want to quit? What is it that you want? And she told him, well, I want to have freedom. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to go on adventures and see the world and do all those things. And so he ended up saying, well, how about I'll let you work remotely?
Yeah.
And so she actually didn't quit her job, but she ended up getting such a good deal where she was able to travel the world and just work from her laptop at her same job with her same salary. So just by even, telling your boss that you are thinking about quitting could already give you a much better deal, even if you're not quitting your job.
Yeah, there's something about us sometimes limiting ourselves by the assumptions we make about the surroundings, right? So in this case, going to your boss and asking, hey, this is actually what I want. Is there a way to make this happen? But that's sort of already the mindset of an entrepreneur, right? Okay, this is what I want to do. I'll figure out a way to do it. But I think it's good, that there are more options than what's right in front of you, and it's good to explore them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's different alternatives, but then also, I would also want to say that, I mean, it really depends also on how far you want to push yourself to make something happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a friend who used to be a lawyer, and he quit his job a while ago, and what he really wanted to do, he wanted to teach math. And now he has a website, a YouTube channel, and he's doing really well. He's actually making more money now than he used to as a lawyer. But I mean, when he quit his job, he didn't have that much savings, and I mean, he wanted it so badly. He was putting in so many hours. He was working at this thing 16 hours a day. It was crazy. Like I was actually worried about him. I was telling him, like, dude, like, don't get a burnout or something. Like you need to have some free time. Take a break. Take a holiday or something. Yeah. But he was so driven. He was like, no, I don't want to go back to this lawyer job. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this happen. And and man, I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah. Hey,
sorry. One more thing. What I'm really trying to say is, like, this life of, like, having freedom and traveling around, it sounds very glorious, but at the same time, it also comes with a lot of challenges, a lot of, insecurities, a lot of struggles, like ups and downs and all this stuff. And so I really think that, you really have to ask yourself, like, is this really what I want? Because it's not smooth sailing most of the time, And so, there's nothing wrong with just, having a normal job and leading sort of like a quote unquote normal life. So I think it's really important to really ask yourself, okay, do I really want to do this, or is this kind of like a fun thing that I would want to do for a couple months or maybe a year, and then I just want to go back to sort of the security of a regular job? It's important to ask yourself that.
Yeah, but also in your situation, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how you live now, but also in your situation, I mean, you are now traveling around the world, living off your Airbnb investments and staying sometimes in your own units. But if you would stop the traveling, if you would go and let's say settle down, right, for another word, somewhere, you would still have the freedom of time to decide, what the hell you're going to do with your time, because you basically have this income coming in anyway. The fact that, you do what you do doesn't mean that you have to go and travel the world, right? You could at any point decide, I'm going to go and settle down in, Mexico or God knows where, and then income would still be there, and you would still have the choice to do there whatever you want to do there.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing. You have the freedom to choose and do what you want.
Yeah. So give us a picture about your life. What does it look like now? What is happening with your Airbnb investments? How many of these units do you have, and how do you spend your time now, and what do you do?
Well, so, I started renting out my apartment in Amsterdam back in 2012, and I did it for 5 years, until in 2017, the local authorities, they teamed up with Airbnb, and they kind of, the Airbnb agreed to enforce the regulations. They put regulations in place where you can only rent out for 60 days a year. So the Airbnb story was kind of done in Amsterdam. And so I asked myself the question, what am I going to do with my house? Well, I want to keep doing Airbnb.
Yeah.
And so I sold it.
Okay.
And with the money, I bought 2 places. I bought one place in the Philippines. I bought one place in Colombia, and I'm currently looking at buying another little studio in Thailand as well. So, my plan now is to really, to buy several places around the world, rent them out on Airbnb when I'm not around, and spend a little bit of time in each of my houses.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. Now the houses are they're still either under construction or being refurbished.
Yeah.
So they're not listed on Airbnb yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of my plan, to have several sort of home bases.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 or 4 home bases, and kind of just move around between those places. But at the same time, like you said, also having the freedom to change that plan if I want. Just like you said, like right now I'm actually in Amsterdam, and I'm recording this in an office. My friends there, they're running an exchange in cryptocurrencies, and I'm here trading with them, So
okay.
it's almost like having a real job,
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know how long I'm going to do this, but the markets are very. There's a lot of opportunity in the markets right now. And with my trading experience, I can take advantage of it. So who knows? Maybe I'll stay in Amsterdam for a year, if this opportunity is still there. You know what I mean? Like, just like you said, like, just because I have those places and I'm renting out on Airbnb doesn't mean that I have to move around the world all the time. But that's
right,
basically what I've been doing for 8 years now. I quit my job in 2010. Since then, I haven't been in one place for more than 2 months in 8 years.
Wow. So you were telling that there are some challenges with that lifestyle. What are the top 3 annoyances of how you live?
Okay, well, I mean, there's 2 categories. There's sort of the practical stuff.
Yeah.
Of like, each time you move, you have to get set up. You have to get a SIM card. You have to get you find the gym. All that kind of stuff. Sort of the logistical side, but that's all practical stuff. I mean, it's not really a huge challenge, right? It's being productive, for example, is a bit challenging when you keep moving around and you have jet lags and different environments and all that kind of stuff. But I'd say the major challenges are not the logistical, the practical things. The major challenges are the mindset and the doubts that you have. Like when I quit my job, I just literally sat on the beach in Brazil, and I went on Google and I searched for how to make money online.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I didn't know how to build a website. I didn't know anything about the internet, about how to make money. I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I tried all these different things, and there's, I guess, one of the biggest challenges is choosing what you're going to do, because when you have a job, you kind of know what to do. You go to the office and there's tasks that you're assigned, and you just do those tasks, and then you go home, and the next day there's more tasks, and so you never really have to think about like, okay, what am I going to do today?
Yes.
Right. But the moment you quit your job, it's almost like the world opens up, and now it's like, okay, well, there's a million things I could be doing. Right. And so what happened to me is that I tried to jump on too many things at the same time. And as a result, nothing really worked. Nothing really took off. Because I was spending too little time on each separate project.
Yes.
And so, making choices is a challenge. because there's so many things you could be doing, and what are you going to do? That's one challenge. And then the second challenge, I guess, is like when you actually choose some things to do, and then the question is, the doubts will set in at some point, right? Because with these especially with like making money online, and this is different from Airbnb, right? Like Airbnb is obviously it's different. You can rent an apartment, you put it on Airbnb, and you'll probably be able to make some money. But what I'm really more talking about is making money from an online business, right? So for example, in my case, it's a podcast, it's my website.
Yes.
How do you make money from that? And that's not that easy. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
Like I've been working on that business for 3.5 years, and I'm only at the point now where if everything else falls away, I could live off it. I could have a comfortable living, but that took 3.5 years. Right?
Yeah, it's a long time.
And so I mean, in the last 3.5 years, there's been plenty of times where I was about to give up. I was about to just shut the whole thing down, because I would ask myself, what am I doing? I'm not even making that much money.
Yeah.
Takes
a lot of time.
Yeah, maybe I will never get a big audience. I'm not really good at this. I should be doing something different. Those doubts are going to set in, and and then you have to deal with that.
And you're on your own then in that case, right? Because the website business is your own business, right?
Exactly. So exactly. So it's like, I mean, if you're doing it together, then then I guess you have some support, but that also comes with challenges, I think. Yes. If one person wants to decide to do something else. And I mean, the point is, I mean, it's not smooth sailing. It's ups and downs. There's a lot of insecurities, personal insecurities will pop up. You'll ask, you have that little voice in your head going like, okay, who am I to be providing Airbnb advice? I mean, there's tons of super hosts all around the world. Why do people listen to me? I mean, those kind of questions, they will come up, and when you're having those moments of doubt, it's easy to give up. It's easy to give up and try something new. But I think, the people that I've seen that are very successful at their business, it's like they hang in there. Yeah. They push through those moments of doubt. Yeah. They keep working at it, and a lot of these things, it just takes time. Yeah. It just takes time, right? I mean, if you look at some of the most successful, people like on the people that have like big audiences, big communities, and the people that are doing really well, like Pat Flynn or Tim Ferriss, and there's a whole lot of sort of internet celebrities, who are very successful, and they're very inspirational. But if you look at how they started, it wasn't like they were making a ton of cash after 6 months or after 1 year.
Yeah, not even after 3 or 4 years usually. A lot of these guys, Tim Ferriss, as well as some of the other names you named, to build their audience has taken them a long time, right? But they kept on going with the same thing until it grows, right?
Exactly. I mean, some of these things, especially with the internet, it just takes time to get an audience. Yeah. Right. It's just very slow growth, and there's exceptions, but like for most people, it just, time is a big factor. Yeah. Right. So you got to keep that in mind. So, if you're, I guess like if you're trying to decide what do I want to do, you're going to have to be in there for the long term. There's no easy way to make money online, because there's just too much. You're competing with pretty much everyone else in the world, right? Yeah. I mean, if you start a local bakery in the village, then you already have a competitive advantage over the next guy who's 20 miles away, because people have to drive 20 miles to buy the bread there, right? So you already have a little market for yourself, kind of. But if you're on the internet, you're competing with the whole world. Yes. Like everybody can start a podcast or a website about Airbnb. I mean, there's plenty of people who have the knowledge. So, you're really competing against a lot of people, and it takes a lot of time to get traction on the internet, for Google to index your site, to get more organic traffic. It just takes a long time. Yeah. So you really have to make sure that what you're doing is something that you enjoy. It's something that you have a passion for. Yeah. Right. Because otherwise you're going to give up before you have the chance of being successful at it.
Yeah, I just showed a picture on the screen with you and the Airbnb founders, I think it is, right, where they hold your
Yeah,
book. So
yeah,
you were saying, you're questioning yourself, why would people listen to me? Well, why do people listen to you? There must be a good reason for it.
yeah. That's a good question. I actually, I have a couple funny answers to that question. Well, first of all, I went to Taiwan a couple months ago, and I went on Airbnb, and I found a really cool place. So I sent the host a message,
Hmm.
and he responded by saying like, "Hey, Jasper, man, like I always listen to your podcast.
Yeah.
That's so cool that you're coming into town.
Yeah.
We should hang out." And I didn't actually ended up staying at his place because it wasn't, it didn't fit my dates.
Yeah.
But we did have he did invite me for dinner, and so we had dinner together. And so I asked him this very question. It's
Yes.
like,
Why do you listen to me?
why do you listen to my podcast? And he said, well, do you want an honest answer? And I'm like, yes, I want to have an honest answer. And so he said, well, I have trouble sleeping. And your podcast is it's a topic that interests me,
Yeah.
but it's not so complicated that it keeps me awake. It engages me, but it engages me exactly to the point where I feel relaxed. My mind is not wandering off to other things, but at the same time, it's not so engaging that it keeps me awake. So I use it to fall asleep. So I listen to your voice every night before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And so I didn't expect that. I wasn't expecting to be helping people
Falling
get
asleep.
over their insomnia or their problem sleeping. But I mean, a lot of feedback that I get from hosts. Now I get a lot of emails from people, and I guess there's two things. First of all, when you start Airbnb hosting, it's you have concerns. Like every host has the same concerns. It's about safety, right? I'm getting random people from the internet in my house.
Yep.
Okay, are they going to steal stuff? Are they going to destroy my place? Now these are the concerns that people have, and just listening to other hosts who are already doing it. You go on my podcast. I've interviewed I don't know, maybe like 150 Airbnb hosts or something, right? So people listen to a few of those stories and they're like, okay. And they hear about the challenges and they hear about, all the positive experiences, and it gives them a little bit of confidence, to start doing it themselves, just having heard those other stories. So I guess that's one part. And the other part is just people, some people, they want to get better results, they want to optimize their business. They want to improve their the listing in the search results. They want to get better reviews. They want to be better at a better host, right? And so those people, they listen for the actual advice, right? How do I improve this Airbnb business? How do I do a better job at it? Or how do I get started with it? And I guess the third part of the audience are the professionals. So these are people that are, for example, they're property managers. And, for them, it's like industry news. For them, it's like quote unquote work. I talked to this one property manager and he said, yeah, I always listen to your podcast because, first of all, I want to stay updated on what's going on in the world of Airbnb. Because I do 2 episodes. I do one where I interview people. The other one, I discuss the news.
Yes.
And but he also said,
it's called This Week in the World of Airbnb, right? That's the one where you
exactly,
share all the news on what's going on, right?
Exactly. So, so he said, well, I always listen to it because I can put it in the work category, right? So imagine sometimes I feel a little bit lazy. I don't feel like, doing the tasks that I have to do. And so then I thought, well, if I just lie on the couch and listen to this podcast, that's work because that's like industry news, right?
Right. Yeah. But you're also getting invited to speak at conferences and things like that, right? So you're really now a recognized. I mean, it has taken years, as you mentioned, but you are really a recognized expert in this field now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was invited by Airbnb to speak at the Airbnb Open in 2016 in Los Angeles. I've been invited to speak at certain other conferences, but I'm not a big name where they pay for my flight and they pay for my expenses and stuff yet. So I don't always go because I don't always have time or it doesn't fit my schedule or something. But I've done a few speaking engagements The ones that fit in my schedule.
Yeah. And that's also the other thing that I want to show people is that, I mean, it's not like, you're a small player in Airbnb, but you have a few units, yet because of your presence online and because you're talking to a lot of people and because you're sharing a lot of your knowledge and your information, despite the fact that you have a few places of yourself, because you are learning a lot from others, you are becoming like the expert in this field, right?
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes I interview hosts and I ask them like, okay, tell me about your Airbnb story. And then they go like, oh, I started in 2010.
Yeah.
I have, I started with one property. Now I have like 23. And, I have a property management company and I have this and I have that. And I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, damn, like this guy, we should swap seats, This guy has more experience and like probably more knowledge, than me. So, again, like, sometimes you question yourself. You're like, who am I to like provide all this advice? But then at the same time, there's a website that really inspired me to do this. And that the website's called Expert Enough.
Okay.
And that really, when I read some articles on that website, I was like, damn, this is right. And this website is all about, you don't have to be the biggest expert to share what you've learned, right?
Yeah.
Because most people, they know very little, right? I mean, anyone, if you've done Airbnb for 6 months, let's say, and you already have enough knowledge to teach somebody who's starting out.
Yes.
Right. So you don't have to be the biggest expert in the world, but I think this idea is what holding a lot of people, holding them back, right? Because they're thinking, oh, well, before I start putting myself out there, I want to make sure I'm the number one expert. I know everything. And, I mean, I don't know everything at all, like, because I do a lot of other things as well. So I'm not full time continuously looking at Airbnb and picking up every single change that they make to their website. A lot of time I interview somebody and I learn something myself. I'm like, okay, oh, hey, this is changed on the website. I didn't even see that, like, so I'm not pretending to be the biggest expert, but I know that I'm able to offer a lot of value to a lot of people. And so, I encourage everybody who has that feeling, and I know a lot of people do, of like, well, am I good enough? Do I know enough? Am I really the expert? Just go check out this website, Expert Enough, and just realize that even if you have a little bit of knowledge, that's already good enough. That's already enough to, for you to be able to provide value to other people who know less than you.
Yeah.
And so that's why this website is called Expert Enough,
right?
It's like, you're already expert enough, even if you know a little bit.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing that we found out with this Lazy Money Machine tribe that we're building on Facebook. We initially thought we would attract people that want to learn from us. But it turns out that the people that are joining have expertise in fields that we know nothing about. And that's really what we're now decided to do. Is like, well, okay, fine, people are attracted to our mission, which is, teach people time freedom and, hopefully with a property portfolio do that. But the people that are coming into our tribe are fantastic knowledge sharers for all the other members. So that's what we're also doing now, getting, our members to come on and to talk about what they know, because somebody knows a lot about online advertising. Somebody knows a lot about music. Somebody knows a lot about, there are people that have interests and knowledge about certain things that are fantastic to share in this medium. So I completely agree with you. You don't need to be, the multimillionaire expert in a certain business field to be able to show people something or teach people something.
Yeah. Another good example is I was listening to this podcast on crypto, on cryptocurrencies, and I can't remember the name, but it was called something like the bad crypto guys or something, or they're basically saying like, hey, we don't actually know anything about crypto, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
Okay.
Right. And that podcast is doing really well.
Right.
Which is funny because they're saying like, hey, we're not really the experts. And when you listen to the podcast, it's pretty funny because they interview people and, they come all the time. They're saying like, okay, like, don't take our advice. We don't know anything about this, but we want to learn.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that's actually a pretty fun idea, to instead of saying like, yo, I'm the big expert, I'm going to tell you guys how to do it. You could also say like, hey, you know what? I want to start an online business I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm going to just do this podcast, interview people so that I can learn, and you guys can learn along with me.
Yeah.
So there's different ways. There's different ways to do it.
Yeah. Graham and I always talk about this. Graham, my partner, and I, and we're always saying you should not make two identities of yourself. So if you go online and you claim that you're the expert, but you're not, I think that's very dangerous. It's better to then go online and say, look, hey, I'm the guy that actually also wants to learn about this, and can you please join me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that way people can also relate to you more.
Yeah, and it's I think online, also in what you do, I think authenticity is very important, right? If you pretend that you have 40 units while you don't, people are going to find out, and you're going to be slaughtered online if you do that, right? So it's better to just be
absolutely
transparent about what you're doing and what your interests are. I've got a question from Graham, and I'll pop it on screen, and I'll read it to you because our followers on Facebook Live can see what the question is because I put an overlay. But Graham is asking one question for the Q&A session. What is the most common thing that Airbnb hosts get wrong? The thing that prevents them from making a living out of it?
What's the number one mistake by Airbnb hosts? That's a good question. I think, well, first of all, let me say that, most of the Airbnb hosts that I see now are actually doing a much better job than, back in the day, like when I started 5 years ago, people were making very basic mistakes. But I think still, I would say still it's the photos on their listing. It's just so important. Like if you've ever booked a hotel or if you've ever booked an Airbnb, 90% of the decision is probably going to be based on what you see in the pictures, right? Mm. And I still see pictures on listings that are taken with a smartphone. I still see listings, and those pictures don't show well. They don't display well on the Airbnb website. So it just looks, if you're looking at an Airbnb listing, you see some of those smartphone pictures or some pictures that are blurry or you can't really see the whole space. It's just, you're not going to book it, right? Because you want to know exactly what you're getting into. Because when you're booking a hotel, at least you have certain guarantees, right? The hotel is there, there's a reception, there's 24-hour people around and stuff, and it kind of gives you this confidence. Okay, I can book this, and it'll, at least I'll have the basics. But with an Airbnb, you're really depending on the host, right? If the host doesn't give you access to the house when you show up, for example, you could be on the street.
Yes.
So you're really depending on the host. So if you're looking at an Airbnb listing, if there's even like a little sense of like, okay, this person doesn't really look professional, this person doesn't really look like he knows what he's doing, it really makes it difficult to book it, right? So it just has to look good, and just have to make sure that the pictures just show all the different areas of the space, and that the pictures are good. It really pays off to invest. And if you don't have, nowadays the smartphones are actually pretty good, but you have to take like the widescreen, the horizontal ones, And what I guess another thing that a host often forget is if you haven't been a guest on Airbnb yourself, book a place in your neighborhood, book an Airbnb in your neighborhood, and just stay there for a couple of days, and just to get that experience. Just, when you're running, an Airbnb is a business, right? Mm-hmm. And with any business, you need to understand your customer, right? And the best way to understand your customer is to be a customer.
Yes.
Right. So stay at an Airbnb if you haven't yet, or even if you've already stayed at an Airbnb. Like if you're planning to become a host, you're going to look at things differently when you're a guest, right? Because if you're not planning to be a host, you don't really pay attention to like, okay, what is this host doing right?
Yes.
What would I do different? What's missing here? Why did I book this place?
Yeah.
Like you go on Airbnb, especially in your own neighborhood, because you can also learn a little bit about what are people doing in my neighborhood. You can talk to the host. You can ask them like, hey, what kind of guests do you get? Mm-hmm. Right? You can get some info. And so, when you're booking that place, now really pay attention to why am I booking this one? right? You make a selection of 5 listings, and then you say, okay, where would I stay, and why is that? Is it because of a certain picture? Is it because of the price? Is it because of the location? Is it because of the reviews? The reviews are very important. So, when you go through the process and you're very conscious about it, you're paying attention, then you'll understand better, what your potential guests, how they will look at your listing. And then, once you've done that, you create your own listing, and then you pretend to be a visitor to your own city, and then try to be very objective and just look at the the top 5 listings in your neighborhood or similar listings to yours, and really ask yourself, okay, am I going to book my place or am I going to book somebody else's place?
Yeah, the competition.
And right, and if I book somebody else's place, why is that?
Yeah.
Right, and that's, I guess that going through that process that's usually something that people skip. They go right into it. And so, that's one thing that I always recommend to hosts. And then also think about your audience. Who are the people visiting your city? Are these business travelers? Are these families? If you have a place near Disneyland, you're going to have families, right? So, if you have a garage, how about you turn it into a playroom, right? Where the kids can play. Yeah. It's things like that. It's thinking about who are the type of people that visit your area, and if there's multiple sort of demographics, multiple type of audiences that visit your neighborhood, and if you, for example, let's say you're in a big city, right? Let's say you're like downtown New York. Yeah, there's all sorts of people visiting. Yep. So, right, that's such a big market. Then you have to make a choice. Like, who am I going to cater to? Am I going to cater to the couples? Am I going to turn my place into a romantic, Valentine's getaway? Or am I going to focus on the business traveler? I'm going to make my apartment super convenient to work in. Like, have a laptop-friendly desk, have lots of sockets and iPhone chargers and God knows what. So those are really the things that you need to think about before you even get started. And that's something that a lot of hosts will skip.
Would you say that for Airbnb, the extras that you do are very important? Like you said, like providing the chargers, or provide a city guide, or are those kind of things important, you think, as a host?
Yeah, I do think absolutely. I mean, when you're on Airbnb, you're not selling a space; you're selling an experience. Yeah. Right, and little things can mean a lot in that experience. If imagine you travel all around the world, you're in the plane for 12 hours, you get to your place, and your phone is dead, and you forgot your charger. Yeah. Right, and you open the door of the apartment, and you walk in, and the first thing you see is like an iPhone charger device. Mm-hmm. That's like, you're going to be so happy. Like, imagine it's like at nighttime and the shops are closed. Yeah. Like that little charger just pretty much saved your experience.
Yeah. So since you're not in the locations most of the time when your guests are checking in, who do you get to check in your guests in your units?
Well, so I've always been what's called a remote host. Right. So somebody who manages the Airbnb listing from remote location. And so, when you do that, you have to have somebody who's managing your space. Yes. I made a deal with my cleaning lady. Okay. A woman that I had known for a long time. And, I basically asked her, hey, do you want to manage my apartment? Which means that, you're going to do the check-ins. You're going to do the cleanings. You're going to fix, little things if there's, a light bulb or something that has to be replaced. You're going to be on call when, if a guest have any issues. And yeah, she wanted to do it. So I just made sure that I paid her well. Because it's a very important role, the management of your listing. Yeah. So the only thing that I would do is I would just do the communication. Okay, right? So you do that yourself? I always did the communication myself. Okay. But I made it very clear that I wouldn't be there, right? I made it very clear. Look, I have this lovely person her name is Sandra. She's going to welcome you. Because, one thing that's extremely important when you're doing Airbnb is that you create accurate expectations of what your guest can expect. So you have to be very honest even if there's something that some guest might not like about your apartment, like for example, my place used to be in a pretty busy neighborhood. There's a lot of stuff going on, which is very attractive, but at the same time, there could be some noise, right? And so, after I had one guest kind of tell me, I couldn't sleep well because there was too much noise. So then I realized, okay, I need to let people know. So I put in my description, I made it clear, look, if you're a very light sleeper, if you have trouble sleeping at night, then my place is probably not the best fit. You could, you should probably stay at a quieter area, because in the end of the day, it doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit anyone if the experience that the guest has isn't great. It doesn't benefit the guest. It doesn't benefit the host. So it's better to be upfront, not only about the awesome parts of your listing, but also the things that some guests might not like.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Your current situation. What are your main activities that you're working on right now? You were mentioning you were busy doing trading of cryptocurrencies, which is something that Graham and I have been speaking about a few times as well. Graham had invested and had divested again for the cryptocurrencies. But what excites you at the moment? What are the main things that you're occupied with at the moment?
Well, I mean, I'm basically I'm doing my Airbnb podcast.
Yes.
And I'm doing the trading. Those are the two main things that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
I've done other things in the past, but one of the great things about having this freedom is that when there's an opportunity, you can jump on it.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, for me, this was a great opportunity because I traded for 6 years in the financial markets, and trading these cryptocurrencies is not very different. I used to do arbitrage, so taking advantage of price differences in different markets.
Yeah.
Now these cryptocurrencies, they're trading on there's 70 exchanges or something, right?
Yeah, amazing.
So there's a lot of opportunities. There's futures, there's options. I mean, and the market is very inefficient, right? There's not enough professional parties involved yet where everything is trading at the right price. There's a lot of mispricing in a lot of these things. And so, it's fun to, kind of, be able to take advantage of that. And it's exciting market, it's a very young market. Crazy stuff is happening. The markets are down 10% one day. Next day they're up 15%. I mean, this is unheard of if you compare it to financial markets. I mean, it's almost like, I was trading during the financial crash in 2008. It's almost like the trading circumstances are like that almost every week.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. It's exciting.
And the beauty of this is, I think, like you said, since you have your other things going on, you can then decide, well, I just want to do this. I think it's fun. So let me go and do this for a while, right? And you're not stuck to a career path as well, right? I mean, you're a host, you're interviewing people, you're a speaker, you're providing content on your website. You basically have a lot of different identities of yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the online business, what's the one thing it takes a long time to build it. But once you have an audience, once you have things going, it's not necessarily a full-time job, right? Yeah. I mean, I've hired people now, for my podcast, for example. The only thing I do is I do the interview.
Yes. We'll definitely do a second session with Jasper at some point, I hope, after we collect some more of your questions on the Lazy Money Machine tribe. I want to thank you for looking at this live session, or if you see it later on, thanks for that. And we'll see you next week in another episode.
You've been listening to the Lazy Money Machine. Find out more at LazyMoneyMachine.com.